Guys, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to am I a booktube fraud? The concept for this just kind of came about when I was going through a lot of like really popular book recommendations and realizing that a lot of times I haven't read some of the books on that list, which I feel like I'm not alone in that. I know that a lot of the really big popular books that we often find in the bookternet sphere, be it Bookstagram or booktube, book talk, whatever, a lot of things come kind of heavily recommended, and we get so oversaturated with these recommendations that sometimes we just don't have time to get to them all. So I've decided to split the series up into genres, starting with fantasy, and I just want to talk about some of the biggest fantasy books that are out there, series that are out there that everybody recommends if you're a fantasy booktuber in this particular case, and the ones that I haven't read yet, and maybe a couple that I've tried and have decided are not for me. So the first fantasy series that I wanted to start off with was Malazan by Steven Erikson. I have no real reason for not starting this. I think that I own Gardens of the Moon either physically or on ebook form, I'm not sure. I've seen this recommended everywhere. Definitely a lot of the hardcore fantasy booktubers have recommended this and praised it for the most part. I know that a couple of them think that it's a little too convoluted, and I think that that's where I get tripped up in wanting to read this, because convoluted fantasy is something that it takes a lot of dedication for me to get into, and it is a long series. I want to say it's like 9 or 10 books. I don't really know off the top of my head. But yeah, the first series that I haven't read is Malazan. I want to get to it eventually. I want to attempt it eventually. I just don't know when I'm going to be in the headspace for that. The next one on my list is The Kingkiller Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss. I own The Name of the Wind. I've owned The Name of the Wind for years. It's been sitting on the same spot on my shelf for years, and I think we all know what's holding me back from finally starting the series. It almost universally receives praise, and so does the second book, which I don't know what it's called, but I know that there is a second book. But there hasn't been a book for like over a decade now, I think, and I'm just not prepared to join a fandom when we have absolutely no idea when the next installment is coming, if it is ever coming. I'm also looking at you, Game of Thrones. I just can't. I can't jump into that knowing that there might not be a payoff literally ever. I am the type of person that needs closure. I am not shy about talking about my dislike of cliffhangers on this channel. I hate cliffhangers so much. I have absolutely no idea whether or not book 2 even ends in a cliffhanger. It probably doesn't, but it probably doesn't end in a way that closes things up, considering people wanted the next book so badly. So like, yeah, I have it. I'm ready to start it. If we ever receive a book update on the next book in the series, I will probably jump right in. Where we're at right now, I don't know if that's going to happen. So we're gonna hold off on The Name of the Wind and the entire Kingkiller Chronicles and see what happens. The next series on my list is the Gentleman Bastard series by Scott Lynch, the first book of which is The Lies of Locke Lamora. I don't have a sweeping reason for why I haven't started this series. I also own The Lies of Locke Lamora physically, and I want to say audibly, and I want to say in ebook form. The ways that I can read it are in multitudes, right? Like, I have various copies of this. There's no reason for me not to have started it. I just haven't. And I've heard so many good things about The Lies of Locke Lamora. I've heard so many good things about the story, the plot, the found family, the characters. I want to read this book. I have tried to pick it up several times, and I just like, I'm like a dog that sees a squirrel and I'm just immediately distracted by something else. I don't know what it is about the block that is there between me and this book. It exists. I will read it someday, but as of right now, it's not happening. I know that generally when we talk about fantasy recommendations on booktube, I specifically am referring mostly to adult fantasy, but there's no reason to leave out the YA fantasy in this specific talk. So there's definitely a lot of YA fantasy that I have no desire to read, or it just doesn't seem interesting to me, or maybe I'll get to it in the future if I decide that I want to take a chance on it. The first of which is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I don't know what it is about this book that I just have absolutely zero desire to pick it up. I think I owned a copy of it at some point and ended up thrifting it to a used bookstore before I even had the chance to read it, just because I got it for like on sale, and then I never did anything with it, which is the story of my life with a lot of things. But So Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor, I think it's a duology. I don't remember what the second book is called. And the whimsical narration just doesn't do it for me. It's the same reason that I can't get into the idea of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. It's why The Night Circus didn't work for me at all. I don't really know that that's something you could attribute to The Bear and the Nightingale, but that didn't do it for me either. And it's just those like very whimsical, magic light, but not really, fantasy series. They just don't hold my attention. I guess I'm a person that needs action. I need things to be happening. Like, obviously things are happening in those books. And no shade to you guys at all if these are books that you enjoy. They're just books that didn't really do it for me. And yeah, Strange the Dreamer, I know that a lot of people love this series, but it's not one that I've ever had any desire to pick up. I don't really know much about the plot even. I literally just know that that is what it has been described as multiple times. Like, it's this whimsical fantasy story that I have no desire to pick up. On the flip side of that though, she has another series, Daughter of something and something, that I do want to read, that I had copies of, still have copies of. I'm not sure if I still own any copies of this. I think I do on ebook, but I am still interested. Daughter of Smoke and... that doesn't sound right. Daughter of Smoke and Bone. Yeah, I'm still interested in that, and I've heard really good things about that story as well, and I think it's a trilogy, and I do want to pick that one up maybe someday in the future. The next one that I wanted to talk about is Discworld by Terry Pratchett. I'm ashamed of this, in all honesty. I'm actually ashamed of the fact that I haven't read any Discworld books. I picked up the first, like the actual true first one, A Color of Magic, whatever the first one is called, when I was a teenager, and I started to read it, but it was way over my head at the time. I think I was maybe not even a teenager, maybe like 11 or 12. For some reason, it went right over my head. The jokes did not entertain me, the puns, anything. I remember reading it and thinking, yeah, okay, fine, and then I never picked it up again. But now, as an adult, I do absolutely want to go back and maybe start somewhere else. I've heard that starting elsewhere in Discworld is a good idea. Start somewhere else in any of the series, probably like Guards or something like that, and try and go from there. I've heard a lot of really entertaining things about that. Mort, I've heard a lot of entertaining things about that, and I definitely want to get into Terry Pratchett. I just have not gotten around to it yet. I think I'm going to round this out with one more YA fantasy story that I also have no desire to pick up. It just doesn't do it for me. These are the ones that, like, not even in the future do I really plan on doing anything with it, and that's Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I think, again, it maybe gave off that tone, or maybe the spin-off series is the whimsical thing that doesn't really work for me. Caraval, maybe it's the circus thing, actually, because I wasn't into the Night Circus at all, and I think Caraval has the similar, like, vibes. That's not right. Similar, like, circus-y themes, and circus things freak me out. I'm not interested in anything that has to do with a circus. I don't really know why or where that stems from, but I'm not. And Caraval, I think, is supposed to have like a really cute love story, or not cute love story. I clearly know a lot about what I'm talking about. But yeah, I just have zero interest in reading it or the spin-off series, and I don't plan on picking that up at all in the future. And then I've just got like 2 adult fantasy honorable mentions that I don't really know that I'm ever going to pick up. The first of which is The Chronicles of Narnia. Not necessarily a booktube darling, but definitely like a tried and true staple of the fantasy genre because it's been around for so long. I don't have any interest in reading them. I never have. Even as a kid, I never wanted to pick them up. But The Chronicles of Narnia, I enjoyed the movies, I guess. But the books never held any interest for me whatsoever. And the same thing with the Earthsea books by Ursula K. Le Guin. I watched, this is gonna be really embarrassing, I watched the movie/TV movie situation that they made from Earthsea when I was a child. So obviously my taste in things was not very refined, but I really enjoyed that movie. I know now it's horrible, don't get me wrong. I am fully aware now that it's not good. And I also know that it's a not good representation of Earthsea, of the series. That didn't stop me from enjoying it, and then when I tried to read Earthsea again as a child, after I read and fell in love with this really terrible TV movie thing, that I was not at all into it. Could not get through the book, never had any desire to pick it up again, and I never thought about it again, really, until I got to booktube and I realized that people really consider them to be like a fantasy staple. Okay guys, that is wrapping up the list of books that I have not read in the fantasy genre that maybe make me a booktube fraud. I don't know, you guys tell me, have you read any of like the really popular booktube recommendations for fantasy readers, or what have I missed that might be on this list if you guys know of something that like I've talked about not reading before? But that is all that I have for this video, so I will try and make another one sometime soon for a different genre. Maybe sci-fi, maybe romance, I haven't decided yet. But yeah, that's it for this one today, guys. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Down in the description box, you're going to see links to my Goodreads, my X, and my Instagram in case you guys wanted to follow me on any of those. But I'll talk to you in my next one. Bye.